Yesterday was the end of the festival, and how was it, and or how did you feel after this 2010 Zanzibar Film Festival?
I think the festival went on very, very well. I mean, we had an interesting combination of films, music, and platforms of advocacy that we usually do at ZIFF. And I think what has happened is we've been able to make a real nice balance in how ZIFF is not only simply a film festival, but one that supports all the cultural arts as well as the political dimension of a festival happening in Africa or in developed countries.
I was saying the festival has also a political dimension.
That's right.
To what extent, and if there is an example you can make?
Okay. In terms of its political dimension, we also look at some of the social issues that are happening in Tanzania or in Zanzibar society that we can also help or assuage. For example, you see that in the opening film, we have an issue with the position of Islam in the world. And so we decided to use the film I Bring What I Want, What I Love by Youssou to cultivate the culture of the peace-loving Islam, because the issue of Islam and the negative image of Islam has always continued. So we were using the film itself as a political statement about the nature and position of Islam. At the same time, we also used a film, a new film made in Tanzania called Wanawake Nane, or 8 Women, which discusses the issues of women, just gender-based violence. And we've seen in the film that 8 women were coming out for the first time to talk about how they faced, violation of their rights within a marriage. And that is a political statement. We are making sure that people recognize the role, the place, and the importance of speaking out. In the last phase, we also use films within the children panorama. We've invited over 2,000 school children to our program, to our festival. And we show the films that they will discuss. And we've seen from their outcomes how they are able to correlate their day-to-day lives with the lives of the films. They use the films as a way of learning how to react to to their environments on a daily basis.
Okay. I don't know if it is too early to talk about next year festival, yes. But if there is anything you can tell Africanews about next year festival, anything in the program?
Yes, I mean, right now, first, I mean, the next year's festival is going to be between the 2nd and the 9th of July, 2011.
Okay.
And the theme of the festival will be a season of visions. A season of visions. What we are trying to do is to make filmmakers think about how they look at the future, by how do they envision the future, the past, and the present in their own minds. So we are inviting filmmakers to think about their role as visionaries, as people who have ways of looking into the future, into into our lives, and portend and kind of tell us what we could be or what we must not be, following a specific historical trend. And then what we're going to do next year is we are going to concentrate a lot on Tanzanian films. This year we had films that come from Tanzania. We call them the Swahili films. And for the first time, we were able to open what we call the Bongo films. Bongo films are films that are made in Dar es Salaam, but they are produced very fast, just like the Nollywood, and they have an effect on the audiences in Tanzania. We don't want to run away from that. We recognize their place in society, and we want to embrace them, so that their place at ZIFF would also help them to increase their marketability, to increase the skills in which they make those films, as well as to ensure that Swahili as a language helps to create a language of cinema. So Swahili is not simply a language, it's a cinema that we are going to be developing.
Do you think there is a concern and the possibility to have a Nollywood in Africa and a kind of Nollywood in East Africa.
That's right. I think certainly Nollywood has had a big influence in Africa, and now we are looking at Nollywood in Tanzania is called Bongo film, and in Kenya it's called Riverwood, and in Uganda there's something else. The effect has been to make nationals think about how they can tell their own stories. But for Tanzania, Swahili is extremely important because it doesn't just simply give us a chance to tell our stories, but to tell stories based on a language culture. And language always speak much more authentically of a culture. So we are going to highlight the place of Swahili in the way that films are going to be made.
I know many people outside Africa who really maybe know very well Africa, but maybe not. They think Africa as as a small village, or they call it a village, whilst it's a very big continent, and people wouldn't say the same thing about America, for example, or even Asia. So how do you think your festival could spread, as you were saying, the image of Swahili and the different cultures inside Africa?
Yes, I think festivals like ZIFF help to create other ways of looking at Africa. For example, we call ZIFF the Festival of the Dhow countries. And if you recognize that we're talking about the thousands and thousands of years that the East African coast has had communication with people who live around the Indian Ocean, that is a recognition of a very important globalization system. So, I mean, the Dhow as a vehicle of communication is in many ways an identity that marks Africa as a link that has been there for thousands of years with other countries in the world. It is not simply the basket case that we always think of. It's not just simply a whole continent. It's a continent that actually has a cultural dimension to it. And to recognize ZIFF as the festival of Dhow countries says there's a culture that pervades people who have communicated for thousands of years with using the Dhow, that says about what Africa is. That Africa is not a divided continent, but it's got many, many cultures. And one of those defining cultures of Africa is the Dhow culture.
Okay. Thank you very much. And, have a good work for next year's festival.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to hosting you here if you can next year.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.